Working the night shift at the Blackwood Hotel has been, to put it mildly, unsettling. I got the job about 3 months ago, and right from the start, I felt like there was something off about the place. It's an old hotel, built in the 1800s, and it has a certain worn-out charm. Crumbling brick walls, flickering lights, and creaky floors that echo through empty hallways. But the worst part, the basement. I'd heard faint children's laughter and nursery rhymes drifting up from below. It didn't happen every night, but enough that it bothered me. Every time I mentioned it to my co-workers, they'd just smile that vague, uneasy smile and tell me it was part of the job. Apparently, I was supposed to just get used to it. They never offered more than that, no matter how much I pushed. So last Friday, curiosity got the better of me. It was around 2 a.m., the dead hour. I decided it was time to find out what was really going on. I made my way down to the basement using the old iron stairs, each step creaking as if warning me to turn back. The air was thick and musty, and the dim light from the single bulb overhead cast shadows that danced on the concrete walls. I felt a chill, but I told myself it was just nerves. Then, as I reached the bottom, I heard it. The faint strains of Ring Around the Rosie, just barely audible, like a breeze whispering through the cracks. I froze, straining my ears, feeling my heart thudding against my chest. The song was coming from deeper within the basement, down a corridor I'd never noticed before, one lined with broken down storage rooms and closed off doors. With each step, the singing grew louder, and then footsteps, soft and light, as if a child were walking just a few steps behind me. I felt every hair on my body stand up, and I turned around, hoping to catch someone playing a prank. But there was no one, just empty darkness stretching back toward the stairs. Then I heard it, clear as day, a child's voice right by my ear. "You don't belong here." My blood turned to ice. I whipped around again, trying to find the source of the voice, but all I could see was shadows. In that moment, the air changed. It grew colder, almost suffocating, and I felt something, a presence, looming just out of sight, watching. I took a shaky step back, and then another. The voice came again, louder, sharper, like nails scraping against glass. "Leave." I stumbled back, my breath coming in gasps, and turned to run, my footsteps pounding up the stairs. But before I could reach the top, the lights above flickered and died, plunging me into total darkness. I felt around desperately, clinging to the railing as I scrambled up. The echo of laughter, dozens of children laughing, following me all the way. When I finally burst out of the basement and back into the dimly lit lobby, I didn't stop running. I ran past the front desk, out the front doors, and kept going, never looking back. I quit the next morning, over the phone. Management barely blinked. They probably knew, just like the others. I haven't set foot in that hotel since, and I don't plan to. But sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I still hear that voice whispering. And every time, it sends a chill down my spine, because I know one thing for certain. Whatever is in that basement, it knows me now, and it's waiting. I work the night shift in a small town hospital, and while it's often mundane, things can get weird. Tonight, it went far beyond that. I need to get this out, even if it sounds insane. Maybe someone out there will believe me, or maybe I just need to convince myself it happened. It was around 2:30 a.m., that dead zone when everything goes quiet and eerie. I was on my usual rounds, checking up on patients and making sure everything was in order. The waiting room lights were dimmed, casting shadows everywhere, and most of the chairs were empty. As I walked past the ER's entrance, I heard someone call my name. Not just my first name, my full name. I looked up, and there, sitting on one of the hard plastic chairs, was an older man. He had this look about him, as if he'd been sitting there for hours. He was thin, wearing what looked like a worn-out navy sweater, and his skin was pale, almost grey under the fluorescent lights. He looked directly at me, his eyes hollow and intense. "Can I help you, sir?" I asked, surprised he knew my name. Maybe he'd overheard it somehow, or read it off my badge, though I always keep it hidden under my scrub jacket. He didn't respond right away, just kept staring, so I went over to the reception desk to check the intake log. Nothing. No one by his description had checked in, and no recent admissions matched his age or appearance. Feeling a chill creep up my spine, I turned back to where he'd been sitting. He was gone. I looked around, even checked the bathrooms, but he had simply vanished. At that point, I tried to brush it off. Night shifts play tricks on your mind. Maybe he'd wandered out and I'd just missed it. But that encounter kept replaying in my head, the way he'd said my name with that strange familiarity. Around 4 a.m, I ran into one of the older nurses, Sylvia, during my coffee break. I casually mentioned the man in the waiting room, describing his appearance, trying to see if she might know him. She went pale. After a long pause, she asked, "Are you sure?" When I nodded, Sylvia pulled me aside. She told me about a man named Harold who used to come into the ER regularly about 12 years ago. He was a regular, a hypochondriac, constantly worried something was wrong with him. One night, he actually had a heart attack in the waiting room and didn't make it. Died right there on the chair I'd seen him in. A cold sweat broke over me as she talked, and I could feel the room spinning a bit. Sylvia went on to describe him, every detail matching the man I'd seen. I couldn't shake the feeling, so I went back to check the security footage. I scrubbed through the feed for the exact time I'd seen him, hoping for some proof that would make it all make sense. But there was nothing. Not even a shadow in the chair where he'd sat, not a flicker on the screen. You know how people say that working the night shift at a gas station is creepy? I used to laugh at that. Until last night, I'd never really had any weird experiences. Sure, there were odd customers. A guy once bought only matchbooks, dozens of them, and muttered to himself the whole time. But last night, that was on another level. I work at a gas station out on this long, empty stretch of road. It's the kind of place no one stops at unless they're desperate or they're running from something. The lights over the pumps are dim and buzz constantly, and it's far enough from the highway that you can't even hear passing cars. I actually like the quiet. It's calming. Last night, around 2 a.m, I was sitting behind the counter scrolling through my phone when I heard the rumble of an engine. I glanced up and saw a car pulling up to the pumps, headlights cutting through the dark. I didn't recognize the car, but it had this old, familiar look to it. I sat up, more curious than anything, and watched as the driver slowly got out. That's when my stomach dropped. The guy getting out looked exactly like my dad. Not just similar, exactly like him, right down to the worn leather jacket he always used to wear, the one with the tear on the left sleeve. The problem? My dad's been dead for 3 years. Heart attack took him quick. We barely had a chance to say goodbye. This guy, my dad, stood by the car, just staring at me through the glass. I couldn't move. It was like I was frozen there, watching him. He was mouthing something, but I couldn't make out the words. Just his lips moving, over and over. But I couldn't hear a sound. I tried to read what he was saying, but it was just nonsense. Or maybe I was too freaked out to focus. I felt this weird urge to go outside, like I was being pulled. I shook my head, broke eye contact for just a second, and when I looked back, he was gone. The car, him, everything. It was as if they'd never been there, but the air was thick with something else now, and when I inhaled, I recognized it instantly. His cologne. My dad always wore this cheap cologne, and after he died, I kept one of his old bottles. The smell clung to me, bringing back memories I'd buried deep. I stood there, alone in that gas station, feeling like the walls were closing in. I thought I was going crazy, but here's the thing. When I went outside to check the pump, there was something on the ground, a cigarette butt. My dad's favourite brand. He quit just before he passed. It was still smouldering. I don't know what to make of it. I haven't told anyone. They'd just think I was losing my mind. But I know what I saw, and I know what I smelled. I keep asking myself, was it him? And if it was, what did he want? The only thing I know for sure is that, after last night, I don't think I'll ever see the night shift the same way again. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and check out my other content on the screen now.